Hey, how are you? I am Chris Robin, aka at Detroit Beastie, here with Fantasy Six Pack to talk about Thursday Night Football. The Cincinnati Bengals head to Baltimore to battle the Ravens. Kickoff is at 8:15 p.m. And boy, oh boy, do we have an absolute bonanza on our hands. Let's just call it what it is. The over/under sits at 53 total points right now. I think that smashes when I look at some recent betting trends. I'll give them to you right now instead of waiting until the end of the broadcast. Over in 6 of Cincinnati's last 8 games, and the over has hit in all 5 of the Ravens' last 5 games. Everything lines up to being an over affair. 3 touchdowns for Burrow, 3 to 4 touchdowns for Lamar, and we're just going to dole them out like it's Christmas morning to all the offensive specialty players like wide receivers and running backs. Before we get into all the partiness of everything here, make sure you get to fantasy6pack.net. When you get there, look around. It's no time like the present to really grab a hold of the rankings and the projections and the IDP stuff, because your dynasty teams, your redraft teams, if you're in it right now, you have it. There's a path to the playoffs and some success. If you're already out of it, I understand, but you're going to want to look at some trade charts and all that jazz that's here at the website. And our fearless leader, Joe Bond, as the graphic pops up, as it stands now, first overall across the board. As you can see, I've actually circled it in a red finger kind of, the finger pencils on your iPhone or Android here. He is first overall. So there is some lividity to it. There is, it is what it is. You can see it right there in front of you. Back to this game here, Cincinnati at Baltimore. Not only is it Cincinnati versus Baltimore, they don't like each other, but they're also in the same division, the AFC North. Right now, Cincinnati's third in that division, and Baltimore, believe it or not, is second right now. Last time I looked at it, I believe they have one more loss than the team that's in first place, the Pittsburgh Steelers, and we'll go from there. Everything lines up, as I said at the beginning of this thing, less than 2 minutes ago. The over, it's just going to be slamming it home. Your player props, you're going to want to be taking overs in some cases, but we can get a little bit too excited, overzealous, and we're going to go over this, over that, and before you know it, we're going to miss out by 5 yards, 10 yards on some specific players, like tight ends, like those wide receiver threes on each team. But let's start with what we know. Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson, 2 stone cold studs. Lamar is talked about in the MVP conversation, and rightfully so, given his body of work so far this season. Let's start with Joe Burrow briefly, shall we? They go to Baltimore. That's I've said that a million times already. Right now, Baltimore's 30th overall against opposing quarterbacks. Burrow, 14 grand on FanDuel, 10-4 on DK, 27 to 28 completions, well over 300 yards. A lot of projections have him around 310 to 315. Why not up the ante and just give Joe Burrow 320 yards? 2 touchdowns are a lock. Once again, every time Joe Burrow's played on a single game slate, I've said 3 or more touchdowns, and he's hit 3 touchdowns on the money. Joe Burrow also, he has 2 5-touchdown games, and he has 3 or more touchdowns on 3 occasions so far this season. Everything is pointing up for Joe Burrow in terms of individual statistics, and that's what we're after in DFS slates and sports betting. And the overs as I got to here. So Joe Burrow, 320 yards, 3 touchdowns, and we can move on. I mean, it's not saying anything out of school or anything like, oh my God, I can't believe you said that, Chris. When we look at Lamar Jackson, the Bengals, 28th overall all against opposing quarterbacks. Lamar Jackson, 19 to 20 completions, 230 yards, which you might say, that's a little low given what he's done in the last 4 or 5 games. I'll touch on that after I tell you. 10, 11 carries for 60 yards. We're looking at 3 touchdowns for Lamar Jackson. How are we going to get there? Does it matter? He's going to throw 2 touchdowns. He's going to run for a touchdown. Is he going to throw for 2, run for 2? The possibilities with Lamar are endless. The only thing that we know, the only thing that I know, again, that's set in stone, is he's going to go nuts, and that's fine. Lamar, 280 pass yards or more in 5 straight games. He's got multiple touchdowns in 5 of the last 6 games. Last time these two teams got together, in week 5 it was, Baltimore scored 41 points. Lamar had 348 yards and 4 touchdowns. Again, a lot has changed in 5 weeks. This is the kickoff for week 10, so exactly 5 weeks, not to the day because it's Thursday Night Football, but these two teams it's going to be fun and it's going to be fantastic. I just just want to tell folks, be careful where you move your chips, where you're putting all your money, because Burrow and Lamar Jackson, slam dunks. But when we get to some of the other parts of this game, and I'll get to them, did I tease it at the beginning? I just said what it is. When we look at the running backs here, Chase Brown's finally going to get a shot at being the RB1. We know Cincinnati traded for Khalil Herbert coming over from Chicago. Mentioned Roschon Johnson in bottom of the barrel this week, out later today. But when you look at Chase Brown in Baltimore, they're 7th overall against opposing running backs. But it could be a volume deal to a certain extent, with Derrick Henry on the other sideline eating up 20-plus carries. But when we look at Chase Brown, 13 to 14 carries, 50 yards or so, plus 3 to 4 receptions for another 30 to 35 yards. So again, just shy of 100 all-purpose yards, but those receptions are going to add up for us in terms of points, and the yardage is going to be there. Zach Moss, last I look, is going to miss the rest of the season if that makes sense to you, with some sort of neck injury. So Chase Brown and Khalil Herbert will mix in, but how much? Do I feel comfortable using Khalil Herbert tonight? Absolutely, because this game, I should have said this at the beginning rather than it getting lost in the shuffle in the middle of the video here. But this game, I see no way around playing this in a single game slate other than from a cash game perspective, because there's so many sure things in a way, and that's just the gambler in me. You never want to talk in absolutes, or it's a sure thing, it's a slam dunk. But sometimes you have to call it what it is, and tonight is going to be that way. When you look at Derrick Henry, Cincinnati Bengals, does DVP even matter? If you're keeping track at home, they're 12th overall against opposing running backs. Derrick Henry, 20 to 21 carries. That might be on the low side, 100-plus yards. If we're going to really lock in a specific amount of rushing yards, I think we're looking at 115 to 120 easily, with a touchdown on the ground. And Derrick Henry, all these folks that faded him because of his age, we've seen the screenshots or the receipts, as the kids say. You look foolish, and that's okay. 30 or more, 30 years or older running backs don't do much. The ADP dipped. I don't like it. Oh, well, Derrick Henry averaging 6.3 yards a carry. It's ridiculous, and he has 13 total touchdowns for the season. This guy is a battering ram. They don't call him king for no reason, I should have said. When we look at the wide receivers here, coming up in around 8 minutes to 7.5, 8 minutes to the video. Found a sweet spot with 10, so we'll keep it moving. If you want to not fast forward the video, but play it at 2 times the speed, have at it. That'd actually be fun to play it back, and I think I talked pretty fast to begin with, but we go from there. Jamar Chase, absolutely another slam dunk. Why? Because Baltimore's dead last, 32nd overall against opposing wide receivers. And will the addition of Tre'Davious White really matter much? Yeah, in the long run, sure. But first thing right here Thursday, not exactly, don't have that warm and fuzzy feeling in me that Tre'Davious White is going to come in day one Thursday night and really shut down Jamar Chase or any of the other Cincinnati Bengals wide receivers. You're looking at 10 to 11 targets, 8-9 receptions, again, 100 or more yards. Locked, you could do 100 or more in your player props, and a touchdown, absolutely. We look at some of the other wide receivers. Andre Yosavash, he's absolutely in play. 4 to 5 targets, 3 to 4 receptions, 40 yards. Looks like T. Higgins is going to miss yet another game. This will be his 3rd straight. Again, I read everything. I do my notes. I take in and I comprehend as much as I can, and then it comes out as it comes out to you in this video. Thank you for watching. I'll say that as well. When we look at the Baltimore wide receiver, Zay Flowers, Rashad Bateman, he might take a hit given the fact that they've added Deontay Johnson. But let's start with Zay Flowers. When you look at what he's done, 100 yards or more in 4 of the last 5 games, he's really stepped up to be that wide receiver 1 in this offense with Lamar Jackson at quarterback. It's a beautiful thing. 6-7 targets, 5-6 receptions, around 70 yards and a touchdown reception. What are we going to get out of Deontay Johnson? That's what I know. That's my biggest concern. I'm not going to lie and say that's what everybody's at. Nobody's asked me that, but I'll just tell you that because that's what's on the top of my mind right now. 5 to 6 targets, 3 to 4 receptions, 45 to 50 yards, and I do think he scores a touchdown as well. There's just so much yardage and points and touchdowns to give out this week. It would be very sweet. It'd be very fitting if and when Deontay Johnson scores a touchdown this week. When we look at the the tight ends, Gesicki, Drew Sample, Mark Andrews, Charlie Kohler. I find this to be the area, not of concern, but the area where we should pay most attention from a multi-entry GPP kind of perspective, because the wide receivers are going to be used up. Nelson Aguilar, Jermaine Burton, as I mentioned, Rashad Bateman. Everybody's going to try and piece their lineups together with one or two of those cheap lower end guys for the sake of getting in Derrick Henry and Jamar Chase and Zay Flowers all in the same lineup. You're going to need to cut salary elsewhere. I believe the best and the sweetest way to do that is with the tight ends. Mike Gesicki, briefly, Baltimore's 26th overall against opposing tight ends, 5-6 targets, 4 to 5 receptions, 50 yards. He'll be able to move around more freely without T. Higgins. We've seen that happen already, so it's not like I'm saying something, whacked out or insane, although I've spoke that way before. Kind of a calling card that I'm proud of. Drew Sample is also in play for me tonight. 2-3 targets, 2 to 3 receptions for about 25, maybe even 30 yards. And if Drew finds the end zone, as I've always said since day one in my DFS stuff, that would be gravy. 3 receptions, 30 yards, and a touchdown is the perfect stat line if we're going to punt the tight end position, but this is an all flex lineup. So if you're going to punt any position, you hope for 3 catches, 30 yards, and a touchdown. Could see that tonight for Drew Sample. On the other end of things, Mark Andrews finally, has come back to life, and it's wonderful, because this Baltimore Ravens offense with Lamar Jackson at the helm is just, it gets that much sweeter and more, not easily digestible. That's a crappy term to take, but with Mark Andrews on the field playing well, catching passes and touchdowns, that's what we've grown to expect when watching any Baltimore Ravens games. 4 to 5 targets, 3 to 4 receptions, 35 to 40 yards, and I believe he scores a touchdown as well. But what about Charlie Kohler? He's in play for me as well. So Drew Sample and Charlie Kohler could be a whacked out 1-2 punch, but it could be absolutely, fantastic if it turns out to be the way that I think it's going to be, or the way that you think it's going to be with all the overs and the final score. Charlie Kohler is only $600 on DraftKings, so you're not losing a lot. It's a wonderful punt play. You're looking at 1 to 2 targets, 1 to 2 receptions, not a ton of yards, 10, 15 yards maybe, but that touchdown reception, if he hits on that one, it would be wonderful. As we go on, neither DST's in play because I have a 31 to 28 final, 34 to 31, something along those lines. Sure, the end game with the points scored is really of no concern when you're stacking or using DSTs, even in seasonal fantasy formats, but the sacks and the interceptions, they're going to be there, but it's just going to be so tough to pinpoint which DST does it and which DST doesn't. So I'd rather just fade the defenses in favor of the kickers. And we have 2 very good kickers tonight, Evan McPherson and Justin Tucker. Of the 2, I can't really place an importance on one or the other. We know Justin Tucker has become one of, if not the greatest kicker of all time in professional football. But given the total points here, there's going to be tons of extra points. There's going to be field goal attempts if there's a third down stop in the red zone. But even if it is a third down stop in the red zone, what are the chances that these teams, one or both of these teams, don't just go for it for the heck of it, because it's going to be whoever has the ball last will win this thing, regardless. Let's say no overtime. Whoever has the ball last late in the fourth quarter could rightfully win this game. But to me, I have the Baltimore Ravens to win this one, 31 to 28, and that could be a low end score, which is nuts to say, given the fact that the over under is at 53. This total lends itself to 59 to 60 points with a margin of error of 2%. But to me, I love the Baltimore Ravens, 31 to 28. I gave you the 2 of the most important recent betting trends. I will tell you, I'll leave you with this easily found information. I just kind of wrap it all in a bow for you, anyone here. Baltimore scoring 31.4 points a game. Cincinnati scoring 25.2 points a game. So it's kind of right on track for the final score, 31 to 28. But give me the Ravens to win this one, 31 to 28 in a tight one. It's going to be fun, and who knows, could be 35 to 34. Last possession of the game wins this sucker. Lamar, MVP captain. Joe Burrow, MVP captain. Derrick Henry, MVP captain. But I could see a case where you could make Mike Gesicki your MVP captain. You could make Mark Andrews your MVP captain. Or if you wanted to get a little bit more nuts for those multi-entry GPPs, Play Charlie Kohler in the MVP captain spot. Put in Rashad Bateman, Andre Yosevich, Burton, Nelson Aguilar. There's so many options tonight that it gets confusing. It gets nuts. Make sure you don't overextend yourself with your entries, because I've had the propensity to do that before. Play quarter lineups, nickel lineups, dollars, whatever you're after, whatever you can afford. This is the game we're going to want to be in on. It's going to be fun. Thursday night football. Be good, be safe. Bottom of the barrel out later this evening, if not Friday morning, and I'll see you again live Sunday morning, actually Sunday early afternoon at noon for the Fantasy Six Pack Sunday Social. Baltimore wins 31-28. Talk to you soon. Bye.